Do you repurpose your content? Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. Today we're going to be talking about content repurposing, and this all ties into the whole topic of content marketing, mainly content marketing. I mean, content is anything that you're using in an information business, whether it be info marketing or what have you. If you're using information in any way, are you repurposing that information? That's the real question here. And I'm going to go through a bit of a story and we'll see if it comes out right because it's all up here. I never, one thing that I never do is I never write this stuff down. When I sit down and talk with you, I very rarely have it mapped out unless it's something really complicated that I want to make sure I get right. You'll notice I never have notes or anything. I never write anything down. The only thing I do have written down is this, dreambizchat.com. That's right. Every episode here is brought to you by dreambizchat.com. We're going to have another domain with another little call to action, but in the meantime, right now, we've got dreambizchat.com. Specifically, if you haven't watched us before, this is a website specifically for business owners and executives of companies which serve the self-reliance field. So meaning you have products and services that help people to become more self-reliant. This is a website just for you, dreambizchat.com. The link is also in the description if you forget it. So go check that out. There's a video there. I'd love to hear what you think. Now, let's talk about repurposing. And it all starts out with a story involving this guy right here, this little radio. Because this radio, and it's just a replica. It's a Thomas replica radio. It's not a real old style. It's not an old radio. It's just an old styled radio. It's made to look like one of the older models, and I really love it. It turns on and everything. But I love it because some of my earliest memories of getting into, the world of content was listening to old radio shows. So, for those of you who aren't aware, back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, mainly within that era, it was previous to televisions being used all over the place and previous to them having a whole lot of content on television. Televisions were rare up until the 50s. The 50s is when they started going mainstream, and up until that point, when people wanted any type of mass entertainment that was dramatic in fashion, they listened to the radio. So they had stories, they had situation comedies were born on the radio, soap operas were born on the radio. All these things that we know of today that exist out in cyberspace on Netflix and everywhere else started on the radio. And so we still have a lot of these recordings, not most of them, but we still have a lot of them. And so you can go back and re-listen to these things. Nowadays, they're all free online. I didn't have that opportunity when I was a kid, but I had cassette tapes of these things. It was one of my favorite things. I enjoyed it more than music, so I've always liked content. And one of the things I got into as I started getting older is listening. First, I'd listen to anything on the radio that involved talking. So talk radio, sports radio, just a little bit of everything. And then started listening to books on tape. Back then, they were only on cassette tape. We call them books on tape. Nowadays, we call them audiobooks because you get them through MP3 and everything else. So you've got audiobooks, and then you've got speakers. I used to listen to speakers on tape all the time. I used to get into listening to speeches. I did a little bit of speech and debate in high school, both on the speech team and on with the FFA, the Future Farmers of America. And one of the things that I fell into accidentally. So one time I tried a prepared speech, and one thing I was not good at was delivering a prepared speech. I was okay at it, but it always felt very over-rehearsed, too much like delivering lines. And I was pretty good at acting, but I never really got into the prepared speaking. I did that, I think, my freshman year in high school. And then in my senior year in high school, I started doing more extemporaneous speaking. And what extemporaneous speaking is they'll give you a topic, they'll give you something to go off of, and they give you only a little bit of time set aside to be able to kind of outline the points of your speech and get up there and give it. And for some reason, that just clicked. That totally fit into how I function. And I was able to, as long as I knew the outline of the speech, I could go and give a speech just like I do every day here. Just give it off the top of my head. As long as I know the points that I'm wanting to get out, and I can take the speech along point by point, then it happens. It's pretty easy. And one thing I found that worked really well is if I had a really good opener, and what we call in the speaking, the introduction and the conclusion. If you have a really good introduction, you can conclude it with the same story or the same idea. And I got into this, I found this story that was in a book, and it had to do with endangered species. And it was just a story of the Manhattan cockroach. It was a made-up story about this endangered species situation. And I was able to use that in speech after speech. I could always find a way to tie it back to the topic. But because it was a funny story, it tied the whole thing together. And it didn't matter what the points were in the middle. I could always come up with something in the middle, but if I got better and better at delivering this one story. I repurposed the content over and over and over again. This wasn't just in speaking. Okay, I ended up taking this story and I ended up writing all my major papers in many of my classes. So English classes, history classes, science classes. I rewrote the same speech over and over and over again. And I got really good grades because I got better and better at telling it every time, and I knew it well enough and I enjoyed it, so it came out in the delivery. And so that is when I first realized the magic of repurposing content. So anything that you're putting out there, whether you're writing it, whether you're doing any type of audio work, a podcast, a radio show, anything like that, whether you are putting out that writing would be blog posts, it could be books that you're writing, it could be articles. Audio is pretty obvious. Video is anything that you're doing where people are recording it. If you're giving speeches and you're recording the audio or you're recording the video, that is all content that can be repurposed over and over and over and over again. And you need to do it because it's so useful to do. You will get better and better. You would think that people would catch on and they complain about the fact that you're saying the same thing over and over again. If you're getting that, that means you're saying it enough times. And you just need more things to be able to say, but you should keep repeating those things that matter most. And because people need to hear things over and over and over and over again to get it, whether it's you trying to drive them to purchase something off your website, or whether it's you trying to get a major point across to them, or you trying to teach them how to do a specific thing. You need to say it over and over and over again. And we've talked about that before here too. But the magic of repurposing is it makes your job easier. It allows you to add all the special niceties around the basis of it. But if you have the basis, if you have the audio, you can turn that into a book. You can have it transcribed. Nowadays, they have great software that allow you to transcribe it, turn it into a book, things of that sort. It's really great. I found some more transcription software online. I'll tell you about that in the future because that's a great tactic to have, is the ability to be able to transcribe things quickly and cheaply. So that's just another point of repurposing. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Hopefully you think more and more about how to go about your content process, whether you're using it for marketing or using it for your material itself that you're selling. If you're doing any type of information sales, you got to remember repurposing. It's a big deal. So you have a great night. We'll be back here tomorrow. You can check out more videos and audios over at brianjpombo.com. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.